Hi, this demo is going to be on S2, the Keyplate. It's on page 82. In your Google Drive, you've got a couple of different ways you can open it up. You can open it up as a picture file. As you can see from my screen here, I'm on the Google Drive. I've got a picture of it in here somewhere. It'll say S2, the Keyplate. You can see it right here. Sometimes that comes out kind of small, so I've also got this as a PDF. So if you go to page 82 on the PDF there, I'm going to open it that way because I have the ability to scale and move around here. So when I open the PDF, I can kind of tele in on that thing and pan around. So I'm not panning around very well right now. Let's see. There we go. Okay. So I'm not used to the software. All right, so we're going to do the Keyplate right here. Pretty easy to see here. The numbers are there just sort of to help you with the proportions and stuff like that. So, so here we go. I'm going to kind of go back and forth with the picture here. So let's go ahead and get into the my software here. So this is the assignment sheet. So this will be, what you're looking for right there, the S2. Okay. All right, so let's see. Let me just zoom out just a little bit here. Okay, so if we look back at the part, you're going to notice that it has a natural center point to it. So if you look at the part here, we're going to go for this bullseye right there. So it does have a natural center right there. And we're going to use a center line to do that. So let's go ahead and pop in here. And what I'd like you to do, you do a 0.5 or 0.7 here. I would use a 0.5 pencil on this. So I've got my 0.5 right here. And I'm just going to find the middle of the paper. And we're just going to make a nice light vertical line here. Nice light vertical line. You're just reasonably straight. Doesn't have to be perfect. If you don't kind of look at it, it should be equal on both sides. And then we're going to do the same thing going horizontally. So we're going to make a line, make it right down the middle there, really, really light, just so you can see it there. Okay, just like that. So that would be our natural center point of the part. So again, that's our bullseye kind of right there. Now this part has a series of bullseyes, and that's kind of the way we're going to set this thing up. We're going to kind of proportion it, if you will. So what we see right here is we see a 2.5 and a 5, which means it's 2.5 one way and 2.5 the other. Now we're not going to measure. This is a sketch, but we're going to use these as proportions. So that said, let's go ahead and do that. So let's see on here, maybe, let's go right around this area right here, right about there. And then we'll do the same distance, whatever that is. We're going to go the same distance this way. Try to keep that reasonably straight. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it should be pretty good. That'll really help with your sketch later on. Something like that. Okay. Let's go back and look at the part. Now, going up, you notice that we have 1 1/4 and then 2.5. If you think about 1 1/4, like $1.25, I'm going to use money here, and then 250, 125 is half of 250. So we're going to go down the same distance as we go up. Now 1 1/4 is half of 2.5. So proportionally, we're going to want to go up half the distance that we went over. So if you're going to have a good sketch here, you got to kind of think that out and look at these dimensions and then use them for your proportion. So back we go. So if this was 2.5, I want to go about half that distance down, maybe here. And I'm just going to bring a line across, nice and light. And then the same thing going up. Something about like that. It's your job to does that look like it's about half of that? If it looks pretty close, you're in good shape. And if it doesn't look good, and this looks too much like a square, then you need to change your proportion and get this right. All right, and you'll notice I have several lines here. Don't worry about it. I'm looking at one that I think is the good one. I'm not going to worry about those other ones. Okay, so you don't need to erase at this point. Okay. back to the picture. You can do these things in whatever order ever you want. I'm going to go ahead and make this big 3-inch circle first. Now you'll notice if I make the circle, it looks like it will go a little bit lower than this center line coming horizontally, from this circle right here coming across. So I'm going to think about that as I do this. Same thing up here, obviously, right? It's going to go a little bit more, not a lot more, but a little bit. And that's going to help me with the proportion. So looking at that, so I think that as this circle goes up, it's going to probably hit around, there and there, something like that. So what I want you to do, you're going to make what's called a free circle. They do this a lot in both engineering and architecture. The idea is we want to make a circle. The center's going to be here. It's going to hit these 2 points. Now, as I do this, you can see that if I make my circle like this, you can see just based on the shape here that I am not going to make a good circle there. Or if I go like this, you can see that I'm not going to make a good circle here. You can just tell by, there's no way if I put a circle, line down there, that would be a good circle. However, if I just kind of get it going there and I'm looking about where it's going, that's looking, feeling pretty round. I just drop my pencil down, nice and light. I might not hit it the first time, but I hit it the second or third time. So the first one I didn't really like, but the one that came out a little farther I do like. I'm going to go ahead and just darken those a little bit here. I don't want to do it completely dark right now, but I'm just going to go ahead and darken those lines that I like just a little bit with the 0.5. And so you get your circle. It's proportional. It's pretty round, frankly. Looks like an egg. You fix it. Okay. All right. Let's go back and look at the picture. Next, let's see. Let's go ahead and create these holes. What we have is we have this 3/4 drill, which means it's a diameter of 3/4, and there's 4 of them, which makes sense, right? There's 1, there's 2, and there's 3, and there's 4. So we're going to make those. We already have the center points on them, so we're just going to eyeball the size based on the proportions that we have and plop them in. So we've got the center points. These are going to be easier than that big one right here. We're just going to go ahead and plop those circles in. I don't know, maybe something about like that. I'm going real light on these. That way if I mess it up, I can either erase or just make it darker and go a little bigger or smaller. Like so. Try to keep those the same size. And right in the middle, make those bullseyes right in the middle of your circles. And you can see I'm going really, really light on these. Okay. Next. You'll notice that this 3/4 here means that the distance from this top line to this bottom line is 3/4, which is actually the same size as those 4 holes we just made. So we're going to put 2 more of those free circles in. Now I know that there's only a half circle here and a half circle on this side. We're going to make it the complete circle, but really light. So I want you, when you do these arcs, you're going to make free circles out of them. But we're only going to darken half of it. All right, so we're going to go in here, try to get them all the same size, kind of like that. Again, we're not going to use, the half size that's closest to the big hole. But again, we don't worry about that. As you do these sketches, you can put them together however way you want. You can see now that there's lines that kind of horizontal lines that attach the 2 we just did to the circle. You can put those in now or you can put them in later. It doesn't really matter what order you do these things in. Since I'm there, I'm going to go ahead and just do those now. So I'm just going to take a line, nice and light, just going to drag it in. And if things don't look good, you can always change your proportion now before you darken everything. So you have to kind of do a little self-evaluating and just see if it looks right. Does it look in proportion, or does it look like it's too skinny or too fat? Looking back at the part, that's probably okay. I think that's good. If yours looks too too fat or too skinny, you can just move that center line a little bit to fix it. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to deal with these outside arcs right here. Now these outside arcs have a 1 radius, which means they're a 2-inch diameter. So definition of radius is from the center of the circle to the outside. So 2 inches in radius, 2 inches in diameter, 1-inch radius. It's pretty big. In fact, if this circle were going to come around, I want to say that it's probably going to hit pretty close to the bottom of that groove we got right there. Might even go past it a little bit, but at least pretty close to it. All right, and I think that on all 4 sides. So let's do that. I'm going to put the free circle in. A pretty good sized circle here. Don't worry if it hits other stuff because we're not going to use it anyway. I'm going to say something like that. If you make this circle too small, it's going to be a problem. and try to make that the same size using the free circle, using this as a center point. Almost looks like a tire there, huh? Those are concentric circles. Now, as you make this, see if you can try to make these line up, because we're going to eventually have to draw a line straight down. So you can save yourself some headache later on by making these line up with each other. So I'm looking at these, looking at, does that line up? I don't have to worry about that yet. And then the hardest one's going to be the last one. So we want this to line up with the top one and to the one to the right. So I'm just, again, almost making the wheel. And again, does this line up with this? If it doesn't, you need to move it up or down, then you need to do that. Don't worry if there's a little bit of space here, a little bit different than that. It's a sketch as long as these lines are lining up. However, if they don't line up, if you take this and you go across like this and it's not lining up, then you might have to move your circle down a little bit. This line should be straight. So you can decide if you want to lean it a little bit, which I don't want you to do. So as I'm doing this, I'm coming straight across. If they're hitting tangent, flowing into one spot, you're cool. And if not, you're going to have to go back and move those circles a little bit. It's very likely you're going to have to move the circle a little bit if you don't like the way it's going. So looking at mine, that doesn't look too bad. It's, it may be leaning a touch right here, but I think close enough. Again, don't worry about these larger circles inside. They're not going to really be part of it anyway. And don't worry about this touching up here. All right, let's go back and look at the part. Okay, so the next piece we have are these grooves right here, these rectangular grooves. You can see the 3/4 and the 3/8. So they're kind of little wedges, if you will. Those are going to be pretty easy. So let's go ahead and get those going. So looks like it comes about here. Now when I do this one, I want you to very lightly bring that down and do the bottom one as well. I want to see that projection line here. So you're telling me as a designer that those two things are aligned with each other. Same thing over here. Bring that projection line down nice and light, and then like so. And then bring in the groove. Notice I really haven't erased anything yet, which is exactly the way I want you to sketch it. Okay, so once you've got your geometry in, if you want to go in there and just, do a little, just lighten a little bit, that's fine. But just to make sure your proportion looks okay, look back at the part. Yeah, mine's probably right. I probably could have gone a little higher on that, so I think I'm going to do that. I don't think mine's quite high enough, so I'm just going to just bump this up just a little bit there. I think this one's okay. I think that top one just wasn't perfect. Okay. And so I want you to lay them out nice and light, using the center lines first, and then using the center lines for the free circles. Try to get those free circles concentric and then line them up. Again, feel free to erase if you have to as you're moving these little wheels up and down to make sure they line up with each other. Okay, I don't like darkening at this point. I like putting in the center lines. So what I would do here is we're going to put in these center lines. Now what a center line looks like, it's basically a long, short, long. That's the code for a center line in the industry. And what happens is they run into each other very frequently. Long, short, long. And it creates this kind of plus sign in the middle. So you have really two lines that are intersecting each other and forming the little plus sign. Problem is sometimes that gap is a little tough to get with a pretty plus sign there where it looks really good. You don't want the plus sign, to look like this, where it's shorter one way than the other way. So here's what I like to do. With the center line, I'm going to just erase inside here. This is where I like using the small erasers from at the end of my pencils if you have it. If not, you can break out your little white eraser. You can erase in here. It's really no problem because even if you hit some of the stuff that's going to stay, we're going to darken them anyway, so it's okay. And get in there. Okay, so here's the way I suggest you do it. Make the plus sign first, and do that on each one here, like that, and like that, and like that, and just work your way around all the centers of the circles. And it could even be that the lines that you had here before, you might have to move a little bit because maybe you just missed them a little bit with your circle. That's completely fine. I'm going to go a little bit bigger on the large circle in the middle. All right. What I don't want you to do also is don't go over lines. So don't go like this and make kind of double lines. If you make a mistake on a line like that, just erase it and make it again. Don't go back over your lines to darken them, especially the center lines, the thinner lines. Okay. These should be with the 0.5 pencil, so the lead's kind of thin. And then what you're going to do is you're just going to connect them up with a gap. Notice there's a gap there between the center lines and a gap, so the plus sign doesn't touch this line. And then this line goes all the way out past the part, just a little bit like that. And so you just work it around, work it out to here. Notice it's just going past the arc here. We're doing this one all the way out because it's being used for this arc as well. We're going to go out here just to there. This one's going to come all the way in and come all the way over. All right, so let me just go kind of quickly here. So there's redundancy here. So, they all kind of do sort of the same thing. Connect them all up. You want to get in the practice of kind of, going reasonably quick. So, you're not wasting a lot of time. Something like that. And then I missed one over here. So, do a little self-evaluation and make sure you've got everything there. The arcs should have the two lines. And then the center line goes past the circle by about that same amount, past the circle, past the circle, past the circle. And looks like I missed this one here. I'm going to go straight up and straight up. So I'm going to make this somewhere between the groove and the end line right there. So this should be with, again, with a 0.5 pencil. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take your 0.7 pencil, which is a wider lead, and this is going to give us a little bit more pop on the object lines. So these guys are called object lines, and they're the main part lines, if you will, the edges of the part. I think it's smarter. You can do whatever you want. It's easier. For me, it's easier, not smarter, but easier to do the arcs first. It's easier to connect a line to an arc than to connect an arc to a line. So I'm going to spin this around because you can do this however you want. I like going kind of on the down cycle here. But again, you do whatever you want, whatever's comfortable for you. So I'm doing the arcs. Whoops. I'm doing the arcs first, and then I'm going to connect them. Now, when you do these, you want to just say I'm touching, 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 and then go for it. Touching, 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 go for it. One solid dark line. I'm going to do a lot of OSDLs, OSDL. That's one solid dark line. So if I'm not liking what I'm seeing on your sketch, you'll get that action on your sketch, and you have to go back and fix it. All right. What I don't want you to do when you do those solid dark lines is do like this. Don't go like that. We're not in elementary school anymore. They don't do that on sketches. It's just a single dark line. Okay, and that's the industry standard. So no fuzzies. I don't even want you to do this. Don't go back over like this and make your line dark like that. I just want one solid dark line. And if you mess it up, erase it, make it again. I don't do a very good job of going horizontally. Just don't. So I'm going to turn this thing this way. I like to lock my wrist and either push up or pull down. So I'm going to look at those two. I'm going to go ahead and just shoot there. If you go too slow, it almost makes it harder. And you want to make sure that you run into the arc. Okay, let's do the circle. The circles are pretty easy, the small ones. I'm just going to go over my work here. Do the arc, do the circle, one solid dark line with my 0.7. Again, if you make a mistake, just erase it and make it again. You will make mistakes unless you're just crazy good about this. Something like that. Let's see. I like making the arcs first. I'm going to go ahead and do this arc. And like I said, I'm not very good at turning my hand there, so I'm just going to rotate my paper around a little bit. And that would be fine. If you're working with a client too, that makes no difference. What's going to happen with a client is you generally you'll be sketching upside down like this because your client will be looking at the part right side up, while you as the professional will be sketching upside down. So that'll be an art you get into later on. Okay, let's see. Let's do this last one here. Like I said, do it however you want, whatever's comfortable for you. Just giving you pointers as what might work for you. Make sure there's no gaps. We'll go ahead and connect these up. Oops. Now, when I make a mistake like that, I don't want to just leave it there. Erase it. Okay, and then go in there. Some of the short lines are pretty easy. Now you'll notice that the part itself pops. The part that's actually the good part is the good part, the part that stays. That's what I want to show. So if you're communicating your idea and you see that, it's like, oh yeah, I see what you're saying. That's a gasket. A key plate. Sorry, the name of the part is the key plate. So that's a key plate. And it looks proportional. And I can see this got 4 holes, it's got a groove, it's got a couple slots on the top. That's kind of the idea. I'm gonna take this OSD all off. I want you to keep the free circles. I do not want you to erase them. I want to see that geometry the way you've created it. I want to see the concentricity of the circles as you make those. So you don't really have to erase so much unless you make a mistake, especially in the dark lines. There shouldn't be any over, lipping, if you will. So, if you have an arc that goes like this, you shouldn't have something that goes like that off the line. It should smooth into it. It's called tangent, where it's just hitting it in one spot. So, make sure you're doing that. You're going to put your name in Gothic lettering, your period, the date you completed it, revision A, and then this one is S2. So what's going to happen is if you do this perfectly, you'll get a perfect score, and that'll be it. We'll be done. If you don't do it correctly, and I make some comments on it, then you'll have to go back and make the corrections, and then change this to revision B, and then you can turn it in for a higher score. No penalty, but you have to make the corrections, obviously. All right, and that is it. That is the Keyplate S2. It's on page 82.